What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I hope you like this video. This is going to be a review for David Makes Man, Season 2, Episode 2. So, we go back to the future. And we go back and we visit David at Hurston. Remember, all of Season 1 was about him getting into Hurston. He wanted to go to Hurston because Scott told him that's where he needed to go. And you know, for him to get the opportunities to get out of the Ville, yada, yada, yada. And so he gets into Hurston and we revisit him at Hurston. So this is his sophomore year. So we skipped his freshman year. They allude to his freshman year a little bit. He did have some growing pains and of course he had some trouble adjusting. But he is in his sophomore year. He has his roommate. He's got a group of friends. And we start this episode off. We see that he has become, for lack of a better word, he's become the mascot. You know, that I'm sure that wasn't his intention. I'm sure that's not what he wanted to be, but he has become the class or his group of friends, the mascot. They call him D-Money. We start off with him racing and they talk about how fast he is and how they can't catch him and he's so fast and he's so this and so that. His roommate is a Latino boy that we find out later on is from Hialeah, which we know Hialeah is another hood, you know, and you know, he's at Hurston, and Hurston was a boarding school. I don't know if I knew that from last season. I don't know if I remembered that. So it's a boarding school, and it's him, his Latino roommate, and then it's like 3 white boys, right? Rich white kids from Star Island, and you know, some of these other places, you know, rich places in the Miami area. And there's a conversation that he's having at the table where one boy, there's a guy that walks by, you know, one of the guys walks by, and he sort of tries to speak to the boy at the table, and he was like, man, get out of here with that gay shit, you know. And David is like, what's the big deal? Like, he said, hi, like, you're doing too much. And he was like, I just don't want him to get no bad, you know, get no false preachers, and I don't want him thinking nothing. And David was like, why would he? Like, have you done something to make him think that it's more going on than what's going on? Like, why would he think anything? And so, David, you know, they kind of go back and forth. You know, they kind of, you know, do what kids do, going back and forth. He was like, my best friend was gay. He said, I had a best friend in middle school, and I think he was gay. It wasn't no big deal. And they were like, you had a gay best friend? And David was like, yeah. I didn't care nothing about that. Like, he had my back. That's all that mattered, right? And of course, they were just kind of looking at each other like, you know. And his roommate sort of stepped in and was like, listen, you expecting these kids to make sense. They can't make sense. Like, they ain't got it to make sense. So, David is, I'm going to say he's having wet dreams. I don't think it's 100% clear whether it's a wet dream or whether he's peeing on himself, but we see him, this whole theme of him having to get up and change his sheets is just this reoccurring theme. His roommate says, listen, I know what's going on. Don't worry about it. I got the same problem too. And David's like, what? He was like, yeah. He was like, you know, you having a wet dream. He was like, I just sleep with my towel so that, you know, I don't have to worry about changing my sheets every day. And so they kind of make a joke out of it or whatever. And they have this big math test that's coming up. And so David is saying how he doesn't have his calculator. The calculator broke. He's been borrowing the teacher's calculator. And his roommate was like, well, what do you think what are you going to do for the test? And he was like, well, hopefully I'll be able to borrow a calculator again. And he was like, I don't know. Her letting you use it in class versus her letting you use it for a test, that's 2 different things. Like, I don't know if she's going to do that. And so he was like, listen, I got an old calculator that you can use. So I kind of got the impression that he came from a little bit of money too, the way he was like, hey, I got a calculator. Because David was like, hey, this calculator was $200. Like, I can't afford to replace it. So he was like, you can use my old calculator, but it doesn't hold a charge. So you need to make sure you charge it up now so that it has a full charge for the test. So we get to the test, and David, he's struggling. For whatever reason, he's struggling. And he ends up using the calculator dying on him as an excuse. So he goes to the teacher and he says, listen, my calculator's dead. I need to charge it. And she was like, it's always something with you. Which lets you, it gives you that opening to feel like that yes, there is something always going on with David, right? He always has an excuse. He's always got to, turn on the charm thing. We had this moment. I fast forward. Hold on, I missed the moment where they were comparing Hamlet to the Lion King. What's that, Hamlet? Yeah, Hamlet to the Lion King. And David was one of the only kids in class that got it, understood Hamlet. He knew the whole story. He was able to recite and he took that as an opportunity to show off, because he realized in that moment that I'm the only one that kind of knows what's going on here, and to kind of get brownie points. And once again, we know, David, when he knows it, he knows it. When he doesn't know it, he sort of drowns a little bit. So he's in the library, and his roommate comes along, and his roommate's like, yo, so this is where you've been hiding out. He was like, come on, we get ready to do this, the class prank. And David was like, why do you need me there? Like, why do you need me there? And the minute they were doing this class prank, I immediately started groaning. What I thought was going to happen isn't exactly what happened, but I just started groaning. I said, they're going to do this class prank, and the only person that's going to get in trouble is going to be David. That's what I was thinking in my head. So David says, listen, I'll go, but nobody can see me leave the library. Because I guess that's like his work study or something. I don't know. So they sneak out of the library, and they go to do the class prank. And the ringleader of their little group, he decides that their class prank is going to be setting the pool on fire. So David, in a very diplomatic way, talks them out of setting the pool on fire. He was like, oh, yeah, I mean, that's arson. I mean, I think in Florida, I think, it's only like a 3-year sentence, And they were like, wait a minute, we ain't trying to go to jail. David was like, then you might not want to set the pool on fire. That's probably not going to end well. He said, listen, I got a better idea. This is what we're going to do. He said, we just need to get the supplies. Well, of course, his little rich friend got a black card. He was like, oh, supplies ain't no issue. We got that covered. Blah, blah. So, they go and they get the supplies. And what they did was, instead of setting the pool on fire, they used, I guess, waterproof tape. Colored waterproof tape. I guess that class color might have been purple. And they taped it to the bottom of the pool, class of 2012. And then they had purple dye where they made the pool purple, the color purple. And while they're kind of swimming around and laughing and joking or whatever, David sort of swims off to the side and gets out the pool. And so his roommate comes up to him. His roommate's like, what's going on? Like, why are you over here by yourself? He's like, you allergic to fun or something? And he was like, nah, I'm just allergic to the pool, And David was like, I'm not good at treading water. And when I start feeling that panicky feeling, I can't really hang with that too much. And so his roommate was like, oh, come on. Like, I got you. Like, he was like, don't you trust me? And just as David is, I guess, getting ready to get back in the pool, that's when the rest of the guys sort of swim over. And, that sort of ends that little moment. And then, they get out the pool, they're all talking, and the guy has a book bag full of beer. So they're drinking the beer or whatever. And, they hear security coming and they run off. And so I could breathe again, because in my mind, I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Like, I just knew something more sinister was getting ready to happen with that whole class prank. Because, let me rewind a little bit. When adult David is sort of thinking back on this moment, he's saying, going back to where it all started. So I'm thinking, okay, is this the moment where he got kicked out of Hurston? And he's getting ready to get, that's when my mind went left, right? Anyway. So now we're at like a field trip. It's like some sort of like wildlife conservation situation. And David sees Marissa. Now he hadn't seen Marissa. And of course his knucklehead guy friends are loving her, lusting over her, thinking she's cute. And David was like, I know her. And they were like, you don't know her. And of course they did what most high school guys do. Oh, that was your girlfriend? Oh, you knew her, making all of the jokes. And they were like, go ahead, David, go speak to her. You know her, go talk to her. So David goes over there to talk to her. And she's originally happy to see him. And they have a little conversation, and she's, hi, how you doing, kind of thing. And then she sees behind him his friends acting stupid, right? Doing what guys do. And her whole personality immediately changes. Like, she immediately gets mad at him and irritated with him. And she was like, why did you come over here and talk to me? I mean, you could have just waved at me and I would have waved back. And he was like, because he doesn't know what his friends are doing behind him. So he's like, what happened? Like, we were just having a good conversation. And he was like, I came over to speak to you because I miss you. Haven't seen you in like 2 years. And she was like, yeah, that's right. We haven't seen you in like 2 years. Or did you forget about Saren? And David was like, of course I didn't forget about Saren. He was my best friend. And he was like, I miss you. Like, if it hadn't been for you, you helped save my ass. Like, you had my back when we were in middle school. Like, I don't understand where this is coming from. And she was like, well, that was then, this is now kind of thing. And she was like, I'm sure your friends are waiting for you. And that's when David turns around and sees that they're really kind of being jackasses behind him. And so I'm sure that Marissa felt like the only reason why he came over there was sort of like a setup type situation. And he was just, not really here for it. So I guess it's like a holiday weekend or something like that. And David's roommate's going home for the weekend, but it seemed like it's a weekend where a lot of people were going home, because he was like, David, why you not going home? Like, why you staying here? And he was like, oh, I got plenty to keep me busy. We got our Shakespeare project we got to work on. So he's helping his roommate carry his bags out, and his roommate keeps trying to take the bag from him. He's like, no, I got it. No, I got it. No, I got it. Finally, they get to his dad, and his dad starts talking to him in Spanish, not knowing that David can understand him. So whatever he said in Spanish, because I don't speak Spanish, but whatever he said, it must have been very racist and very insulting, because David let them know that he spoke Spanish. And then he's going to look at his son talking about he speaks Spanish? Like, why didn't you tell me he spoke Spanish? And the son is looking at him like, hell, I ain't know either, And David was like, yeah, have a good evening. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, the next day, or that, guess that after the weekend is over, the roommate is sitting there. He's like, David, we good? David was like, yeah, we all right. But you can tell David really ain't, So the loudspeaker announcement is made over the loudspeaker about the prank. And if you know anything about it, this is not what Hurston men do, yada, yada, yada. So the leader of the pack, the dude with the black card, comes through, and he's drunk. And he's being loud, and he's talking about the prank and everything. And they're like, be quiet. Like, we got away with it until somebody snitches. Like, you're being loud. Somebody can overhear us and turn us in. And he was like, what are you talking about? I ain't even saying that. What are you talking about? So then they start talking about their Shakespeare project, and they start talking about how they're going to do it as a rap. Because David was trying to teach them iambic pentameter, which is what, Shakespeare is written in. And David was explaining to them that's how he's able to read it, because he gets the rhythm of how the words are written. So they start doing this whole rap thing, this whole freestyle rap thing. And they flip it to Mr. Blackheart, and Mr. Blackheart starts using nigga. And so the first time he said it, David kind of gave him that look, but he didn't say nothing. Second time he said it, David was like, and he tried to throw it to David, like, okay, it's your turn. And David was like, nah, I'm good. He was like, oh, come on. I know you can rap. Like, I know you know how to rap. And then he said something, my nigga. Anyway, by the time it was over, he had said the word 3 times about the last time, because David told him, don't call me that. So then he said it again, like, oh, what, you mad? Come on, you know you mad. And before he could, David pushed him and was like, David told him, was like, don't talk to me like that. So then, and now he's embarrassed because David done got live with him in front of everybody. So he pushes David. Well, David punches his ass back. So now him and David are sitting in front of the principal. And the principal basically flips it on David. He said, listen, what happened? And David was like, I was provoked. I was provoked. I didn't start it. He was calling me nigga. He gonna say, wait a minute, don't use that word. He was like, that's my point. That's what he called me. So David was like, he kept calling me the N-word. I asked him to stop calling me the N-word, and he kept doing it. So he gonna look at the boy and tell about something. Is that true? So David was like, well, he pushed me, and then I punched him. And he was like, well, we have a 0 tolerance policy. So he's going to look at the boy and be like, your father will be very ashamed of what you're doing to the family name. And, like you should be ashamed of yourself for using that language. We have a 0 tolerance policy for bigotry, racism, yada, yada, yada. Then he gonna turn to David and say, but we have a zero tolerance policy on violence. And even though what he said was wrong, it does not justify you putting your hands on him. He said, I'm looking at your record in your freshman year, no problems. But now I see here that, you you failed your last math test, you fighting. And David was like, wait a minute, no. Like, I just needed more time. And he was like, you're making up a whole lot of excuses. He said, I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to send you home for the week. And you're going to be on academic probation for the rest of the year. And then we're going to see where we are. So, of course, David is like, that's not fair. And he tries to even stand up. Here comes security. I said, boy, here we go. So David ends up going home. Now, while he's packing up his bags to go home, his roommate is like, oh, that's messed up. Why they do that to you? David was like, yeah, I don't know. Why would they do that to me? And he was like, I needed your back when he was calling me a nigga. But, what can I expect from you? Because, hell, your dad said all kinds of crazy stuff about me, too. So I guess, why would I think that you would have my back and be there to defend me? So David goes back to the Ville. He sees JG, and it looks like JG is in a fight. And David is ready to come in and save the day. And he realized that JG is just talking to his friends and playing. He sees a couple of the guys there, and he was like, what's been going on here? And they were like, listen, it's been real, quiet since, Shinobi and Zella Kool-Aid Boy and the closed up shop. And they were like, what you doing here, David? David was like, man. And he said it, and I think he expected a different response. He was like, man, I had to tune up a little disrespectful white boy. And they were like, well, hell, if you was going to be fighting, you might as well stay here in the Ville. Like, you going to prep school to fight? And I think David expected a different response. But when it didn't seem like they thought it was cool that his ass was fighting, then it was kind of like, I think he felt a little foolish. So then he goes up to the apartment, and it's this strange little boy there. And David is like, who are you? He's like, hey, you David, right? And JG's standing like it ain't no big deal. When his mama comes out the room, and come to find out, this is the beginning of his mom's rescue mission. She said, well, I'm helping Miss, her friend, I can't think of his name now, but her friend, I'm helping, them out. To, basically, this is a stop on the underground LGBTQ web, railroad. And Zion is his name, I think. And his mom comes out the room, and she's like, David, what you doing here? So, of course, David starts asking her questions. The who, the what, the when, the where. And at first, she starts answering them. And then she said, wait a minute, hold up. I know you ain't rolled up in my house in the middle of the week asking me questions, and you ain't answered mine yet. What are you doing here? So David tells her that he got suspended for fighting. And he was like, but it wasn't my fault. This is what happened. That's what happened. That's what happened. And she was like, wait a minute. First of all, how they gonna send you home and ain't nobody called me to say nothing? And she was like, do I need to go up to that school? And she about to go off. And then she stops herself and she takes a breath. And she says, you know what, David? I trust you. If you say that's what happened, then that's what happened. Okay. She was like, I got to get ready to get to class. We'll talk more when I get home. JG, make sure that homework is done by the time I get home so I can check it. And David is like, that's it? She said, yeah, I trust you, David. If you say that's what happened, then that's what happened. And he's like, the fuck? So he goes in his room and he's looking for a poetry book that Sky gave him, because he'd been talking to his roommate about the poetry and how poetry, that's his favorite book that his friend Sky gave him. And JG comes in and he's like, JG, what is going on with mom? And JG was like, yo, that's what it is around here these days. She stay busy. He was like, but is she good? He was like, oh, she good. Like, she good. Basically asking, she ain't getting high again, is she? And JG is like, no, she good. Like, she's good. Everything is good. But she just, you saw her. And then JG asked David about, he's been having wet dreams, honey. And David is able to help him. I mean, not wet dreams. He's been getting hard. Sorry. And David is able to help him out, telling him the technique that, that you got to use, And he was like, man, thank you so much. Mama ain't know nothing. Like, she was clueless. He was like, that's why I need you, D. That's why I need you. And again, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, is this where he drops out of school? Like, I I'm still waiting for this whole where it all began moment, right? So we see David go back to school, and he tries to ignore his roommate. And his roommate is like, so you just going to ignore me? Like, you really going to sit here and pretend like you can't hear me talking to you? So he finally tells him, he was like, you know what, we good. We good. So, actually, let me rewind. Damn, I'm about to miss an important part. He goes back to his middle school looking for Miss Woodstock. It's not Woodstock. It's Woodstrap, a.k.a. Felicia Rashad. But she's retired now. And the school gave him her email address. And so he emails her and he tells her what happened. He said, listen, I need your advice. Like, I really need your help. I'm sorry to bother you. I hope it was okay that the school gave me your email. And so she responds. And she tells him, she said, first of all, I'm disappointed that you still have not figured out how to de-escalate. Second of all, you practically begged to go to this school that was predominantly white, made up of a socioeconomic class that you're not used to, and you're surprised that you're dealing with racism. You didn't have a plan for this. You didn't anticipate that there would be a moment where you would come into contact with a racist situation. You didn't. And so you were caught off guard and you responded in the way they expected you to respond. She said, you're going to have to learn that everybody that's supposed to be your friend ain't your friend. And when you expect them to stand up for you, they're not going to be there. And you've got to figure out a plan, and you've got to figure out your way and maneuver your way around, because those obstacles are not going anywhere. The racism is there. It's going to be there. You have to figure out how you're going to respond and how you're going to maneuver around it. And you got to be careful about the people that you think are your friends ain't really your friends. So he gets back to school, and I guess that's what he calls himself, trying to maneuver the waters, knowing that, like, okay, this is my roommate. He ain't gonna stop being my roommate. So David tells him, he said, you know what? Don't even worry about it. It's whatever. He was like, well, I mean, are we cool? David was like, whatever. It's whatever. So the guys come through. The three white boys come through. And of course they're not, they're like, we're happy to see David. Oh, we're glad you're back. And the dude the one that was drunk that he got into the fight with, he apologizes. He said, man, thank you so much for not snitching on me. And David was like, what? He was like, thank you for not telling them that I was drunk, because my mother would have wanted to put me in rehab again. And David was like, again? Like, mind you, they 10th graders. Put you in rehab again? So they get ready so now they got to get ready to work on this Shakespeare project. Now, part of me feels like the only reason why everybody was so eager to make up with David is because they knew they couldn't do that damn Shakespeare project without him, but whatever. So they're sitting there, they're working on the Shakespeare project, and once again, Mr. Blackcard gets in his feelings, and he starts coming for David. And David, David knows how to give that quick get back. So David responds, but now he's trying to insinuate that David and his roommate are more than just friends. He was like, I mean, you did say that you had a friend that was gay. I mean, maybe that's what's going on. Maybe you and your friend. And the roommate at first is laughing when he's making the jokes about David being gay. But then when he brings the roommate in on it, of course, that toxic masculinity drops in. I ain't gay. I ain't no gay. I ain't gay. What are you talking about? And so David gets up like he about to fight again. Him and the roommate start going, because the roommate tries to have David's back this time like he didn't have his back the last time. But then the minute he tries to defend David, that's when he flips it and he says, well, maybe y'all are together. I mean, is that what's going on in y'all room? Y'all always in there giggling. Is there something else going on there? So now he don't want to be seen as the gay boy. So he turns on David too. And then he starts talking about, he said, well, he told me you be in there having wet dreams and stuff. And so, of course, now David is like, well, he the one that be using 2 towels. Mind you, all of them are probably having wet dreams. That is what adolescent kids do. But they're turning this into a whole thing. And so now the roommate is embarrassed. So he starts coming for David, talking about him, that he the poor kid that don't have nothing and can't do this and he can't do that. And David was like, you just mad because I'm smarter than you and I'm better at everything than you. Like, you can't beat me at nothing around here. So The one thing that he can beat him in, though, is what? Swimming. He said, well, he can beat you in the pool. So instead of David backing down, which of course he ain't gonna do, they get in the pool and they're going swimming. I guess they're supposed to swim the length of the pool and back. So David started off pretty good. You know, he's swimming, he's keeping up, he's neck and neck, you know, with the roommate. And then he starts panicking. And he said that. He said, I'm good until I start feeling suffocated and I start panicking. It looks like he actually got a cramp in his leg. And so as a result, he starts flailing and, you know, and he sinks to the bottom of the pool. Now, you know, the guy, the roommate gets to the end and they're slapping fives and they're doing this and they're doing that. But that is where we kind of pick up where we left off with David at the bottom of this pool. Now, then we just fast forward through David graduating from Hurston, like, you know, we see him maneuvering his way through Hurston and graduating and packing up his room and moving back and then moving out of the apartment at the Ville. And JG crying and David telling him stop crying. And I mean, so I guess that was the explanation as to what happened. I'm still confused, but okay. That's where the episode ends. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I mean, I guess I missed something. And once again, everything happens at 3:28. I still ain't figured out the significance. I'm sure we're going to get to that. But everything is 3:28. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Drop it in the comments. Peace.